The doorbell hits at 7 a.m. Sharp, the kind of ring that cuts straight through coffee steam and morning quiet. And when I open the door, there are two uniforms on my porch, yagas shining like toy prizes scripts in their hands and nerves in their eyes. Ethan Ward. "You're under arrest for violations of community authority," the tall one says. And behind them, on the sidewalk, stands Marla Whitaker in a blazer and sunglasses phone to her ear, like a director calling action. The same neighbor who brought cinnamon rolls when we moved in. I keep my voice even. Almost friendly, because that's what years in a badge teach you. And I hold up my real credentials next to their plastic sunbursts and say, "Here's the difference, fellas. One is backed by the state of Arrow Point, the other by aisle 7. And Lena, my wife, is halfway down the hall with a toothbrush and a camera going. Because instincts are instincts, and the short one tries to run trips over our rosemary bush. The tall one goes pale, and Marla doesn't gasp or flinch. She smiles like she knew I'd do it by the book." Yeah, that happened. It didn't start with costumes. It started with paper. The first fine was $300 for house numbers that were 3.5 inches instead of 4. And we laughed for a whole hour. You know what I mean. Because who measures house numbers? But the packet attached had 12 pages of photos, angles, timestamps, citations, like a paralegal binge, and the signature at the bottom was neat as a wedding card. Marla Whitaker, President, Summit Grove HOA. Most folks would pay and move on. But precision like that isn't about pride. It's about strategy. So I appealed and showed up at the clubhouse on a Thursday night, folding chairs and Costco cookies, and Marla walked in with a binder thick enough to stop a slow bullet. Tabs, color codes. Case law most lawyers don't carry around in their heads. I asked her one question when she finished her little seminar. "Where'd you learn police documentation standards, Mrs. Whitaker?" She gave me that smile that says, "I'm being civil," while I push your face toward the curb. Community safety is everyone's responsibility, Mr. Ward. Some of us educate ourselves. The board upheld the fine $300 for a half-inch, and I walked out knowing we hadn't discussed house numbers at all. After that, it came daily like weather. A hose visible from the street. Trash can at the curb, 18 minutes too long, 60. Lawn at 3 inches instead of 2.90. Every notice came with photos shot from angles that made my kitchen window feel like a stage. And at meetings, Marla would say things like, "Some residents believe rules are suggestions." Eyes landing on me, and then floating off like she hadn't landed them at all. You isolate a person with paper on a door. Sure, but you isolate them faster with a rumor in a room. 2 guys started tailing me orange safety vests like they were invisible because they were official, one of them hiding behind a stop sign thinner than his arm. Lena filmed them, and we laughed. Then we stopped laughing when one sat outside our kids' school. And here's where I say the thing that frustrated everyone who loved me. I didn't swing back with my badge. Annoying isn't illegal. Creepy isn't illegal. Savage paperwork isn't illegal. And the fastest way to become the headline you hate is to use authority like a bat. So I documented, logged, saved, and waited for the line that turns personal mess into criminal. The line came with a whisper and a coffee stain. At the corner cafe, I heard Marla coaching those same 2 guys' diagrams on a napkin. Uniforms get it on camera tomorrow morning. And that's not HOA anymore. That's impersonating an officer. And that is a felony. I called dispatch, made coffee, told Lena to record everything. And when the doorbell rang, you already know the scene. Plastic badges, nervous eyes, the whole act. I kept it calm, gave the rights, called in the real units, and while my officers were still on the way, I noticed something that didn't fit. Marla wasn't surprised her plan fell apart. She looked satisfied, like she hadn't expected me to take the bait, like the failure was her target. By lunch, a reporter called my office. "Mrs. Whitaker says you're using your position to harass her," the reporter said. Soft voice, that tone that already picked a side. "She says you had her friends arrested because she held you accountable." That night we watched Marla on TV. She was polished without being slick. The perfect neighborhood president. Pictures of my hose and trash can and house numbers on screen. Her voice steady. "Chief Ward thinks the rules don't apply to him." You know that feeling when your chest goes cold, not because you're guilty, but because you can see how a story will play in living rooms. Grieving widow versus powerful cop. Yeah, I pulled an old case file I hadn't read in years. Here's the twist I hadn't told you yet, the one that snapped the puzzle into place and made the whole room tilt. Months earlier, an envelope showed up with no return address, inside a 6-year-old article about an embezzlement case I'd supervised. A man named Graham Whitaker stolen money from a pediatric foundation, the kind of case that draws cameras, even if you whisper, the kind of case where you triple-check every step because it touches children, and in the caption under his photo, "Survived by his wife Marla." He confessed in his own handwriting, asked us to protect her from the details, then killed himself in county jail 2 days after arraignment. I'd run that file a dozen ways, clean and careful, but grief rewrites facts in the heart. And if you need a villain bad enough, the person who served the warrant can turn into a monster you can swing at without bleeding your memories. That doesn't justify what she did. It explains how she got there. But here's the second twist. The fake arrest was never meant to succeed. It was bait for misconduct, a trap for my temper, a chance to swap her old headline for a new one. Corrupt chief explodes on camera. The next day, her attorney asked for a meeting at the station to resolve an unfortunate misunderstanding, and I said, sure. Set the room, checked the cameras. Invited Lena to sit as a witness because the truth we live with at home matters. More than the truth I speak in uniform. Marla came in like she was walking into escrow, poised chin high, her lawyer with the practiced smile, and I slid a folder across the table. Bank transfers to the 2 men. Messages about timing Lena's video of the door scene, and before her lawyer could spin, Marla stared at the paper and finally spoke. "You destroyed my family," she said, hands white at the knuckles. "A good man made a mistake, and you turned it into a spectacle that killed him." I took out his letter and set it within reach. "Read," I said, not cruel, just steady. She read, and her face didn't crack. It hardened. "So he was guilty," she said. Voice low, "You still chose a path that crushed us." And then she did the thing that changed everything. She talked. She laid out 5 years like a blueprint. The cash offer on a house 3 streets from mine, the volunteer roles, the binder habit, the daily fines. To isolate me, the surveillance to rattle us, the uniforms to make me swing. And if I didn't, the next steps. Complaints to internal affairs, a staged incident, keep pushing until something snapped. She admitted the failure at my door was the point. She wanted footage of me crossing the line. We arrested her quietly by the book cooperation in exchange for the truth. The 2 guys took probation and community service because manipulation steals judgment, and they were not the architects and neighbors poured out boxes I'd never seen. 47 fines in 1 month for Mrs. Chang, a $500 wind chime ticket. Sidewalk chalk listed as graffiti. The story flipped on TV. Abuse power conspiracy. My department did a review of the old Whitaker case at my request. Clean careful, the file still stood in the light, and for the first time in months, I slept. You want the victory? I get it. We dismantled the HOA board that had turned rules into weapons and rewrote the bylaws so they worked like seatbelts, not handcuffs. Property values rose because fear is bad for lawns. We had a block party where barbecue sauce was the only uniform, and kids drew dragons to the curb without a citation. Marla pled out and took 8 years' letters from prison, insisting she's a political prisoner. Counseling refused the same story, holding her together while it pulls her apart. 5 months later, her daughter reached out. New last name, social worker's eyes, a stack of copied journal pages from her mother. She told us what the pages showed. Marla knew Graham was stealing before we arrested him. She found emails, confronted him, begged him to stop, then couldn't stand to live with the version of him who didn't. So she built a world where I made him do it, because blaming me meant she could still love the husband she remembered. The journals mapped the plan past the costumes. False complaints, staged scenes. Keep pushing until I failed myself. It doesn't make me a hero that I didn't snap. It just means I've seen what happens to towns when the people sworn to protect them start solving their own anger with the tools the law lent them. My favorite win is quieter than the courtroom. The morning I measured new house numbers at 4 inches, even though no one would cite me again. Not because I'm scared of paper on a door, because order shouldn't be a punishment. It should be a courtesy to the neighbor 10 feet past your hedge. People ask if I forgive her, if I blame her, if I'd do anything different. Here's the messy truth. I don't forgive what she did, but I understand the hole she fell into because I've stood on the edge of it too. I don't blame her grief. I blame the way she fed it, until it grew teeth. And if I could change one thing, I'd have checked on her the week we arraigned her husband. Not because it would have stopped any of this. Maybe nothing would have. But maybe the first headline in her head wouldn't have been the only one she carried. That's the open door I'm leaving for you. Was Marla a villain from day one, or a widow who turned herself into one because no one told her the truth in a way she could live with? Was I right to be as rigid as I was, or does the system corner people like her and then act shocked when they come out swinging? Tell me in the comments where you land. Share the worst HOA story. You've seen the line between justice and revenge. You've watched someone cross the moment you held your ground, when it would have felt so good to swing. If this hit home, tap like, subscribe for more true stories told by the folks who lived them. And yeah, tell me where you're watching from. Somewhere a doorbell is about to ring, and somebody's deciding which headline to believe.